Captain Midnight.
What makes a great team-up story? It's a simple question, and one that comic book writers have been dealing with for decades. There's a lot of possible answers, but for me personally, a lot of it boils down to this. A great ensemble, a great team, needs a clash of big personalities, and few personalities are as big as the ones found in superhero stories. And I think a large part of what left me disappointed in Justice League was the fact that the team itself, a collection of some of the oldest and most iconic names in the genre, didn't quite get their due as characters. But there's always next time, right? So with that in mind, here are a few suggestions for how to fix the Justice League.
All working together for good against evil as the Justice League of America.
One of the most frustrating aspects of talking about the DC movies online is that so much of the conversation tends to revolve around tone. How dark should the next movie be? Should the DCEU stick with its darker roots or lighten up like it did in Justice League? I think this is a pretty unproductive discussion, honestly, because I don't think that one approach is inherently better than the other. Dark superhero stories can be great, and lighthearted superhero stories can be too. What it comes down to in the end is execution. And there's examples of Justice League stories with all types of tones that work. It might be interesting to see the next film do their cinematic version of Mark Waid's classic Tower of Babel arc, where a villain steals Batman's secret plans to take out the other members of the Justice League should the need ever arise. I think that the story could really work well with our movie version of the character. Because Batman was the one that brought the team together. He's got a complicated, difficult relationship with Superman, a solid friendship with Wonder Woman, and is even something of a mentor to the Flash. So finding out that he created a plan to kill them all, and now they're in danger of someone else using those plans, could create some great friction and back and forth between the team. So yeah, that would probably be darker than the first movie, but I absolutely think that the darker tone could work, as long as the script stays focused on the characters and deepening their motivations. Oh, and speaking of Mark Waid, with the Justice League so newly formed in the films, it might be smart to take some lessons from his other great arc, Justice League Year One, which tackles the challenges and growing pains that the group had to learn in its early days. A blend of these two stories could result in a pretty exciting, character-driven film, I think. But let's say we want to stick with the lighter tone established in the first Justice League, and maybe even make it a bit more out there. I think that could be accomplished pretty well too. One of my favorite DC series of all time was a spin-off of the Justice League called Justice League International. JLI features a lot of smart social commentary and maybe the funniest straight man version of Batman ever, a grumpy take on the character that would fit really well with Ben Affleck's Bruce Wayne. Admittedly, the members of this version of the team are very different from the lineup of the movie, so this might be tough. I'm just saying, I'm dying to see Blue Beetle and Booster Gold on the big screen. But whatever tone the next movie decides on, I think one thing needs to be emphasized above all others. It's these characters and their interactions that will get people invested in your story, above any magical Martha boxes or sinister cosmic plots from Darkseid or whoever that will make or break this movie. I'm not saying that using magical artifacts, MacGuffins as they're often called, is bad exactly. They're part of many great movies. Basically, let the characters drive the story, don't let plot devices drive the characters.
Superman, who can change the course of mighty rivers, bend steel in his bare hands.
But of course, the biggest clue we may have on Justice League 2 is the end of the first movie, where we see Lex Luthor bring Deathstroke onto his yacht and tell him that the villain should create a league of their own. I liked that scene, and even though I'm not the biggest fan of Jesse Eisenberg's bizarre Adderall-fueled version of Lex, I think there's a lot of potential for this team. The best thing about putting together a lineup of villains for the Justice League to face off against is finding the right combination that will complement each other and maybe even more importantly, serve as a dark counterpoint to our heroes. Lex Luthor is the exact opposite of Superman in every way, which is why he's always served as the best antagonist for the Man of Steel. The no-nonsense Deathstroke taking on the Flash and getting constantly annoyed would be fun to see. Batman and Deathstroke is also a great combination. because those guys have quite a bit in common, and their growly, professional approaches make me think that they would probably have a lot of mutual respect for each other, even if they're enemies. Picking other characters that I would like to see added to this evil league is a ton of fun. I know a lot of people want to see the first movie appearance of Cheetah, one of Wonder Woman's most infamous enemies, but I'm kind of leaning towards Maxwell Lord. There's been many versions of this character through the years, but the basic story, him being a man that Diana trusts that betrays the Justice League, I think could be really interesting. It wouldn't be hard to include him as someone she knows through the high society art world. And I think having her face off against someone more grounded would be interesting after she's basically fought 3 CGI bad guys. Gal Gadot's Diana Prince seems like someone who really wants to believe the best in people, and having a friend betray her so horribly could be a really good story, and it could even make her question her friendship with another rich, powerful socialite, Bruce Wayne. My next pick for Lex's team may seem a little weird, but bear with me for a minute. The classic Superman villain Metallo. Now obviously we already have a Superman villain in Lex Luthor, but I'm including Metallo less for how he plays off of Superman and more of how he could reflect Cyborg in an interesting way. We didn't get much time with Cyborg in Justice League, but from what we got, it's clear that he's really struggling with a torn identity. Between who he used to be as Victor Stone and this alien tech that has turned him into a machine that he doesn't fully understand. He's trying to hang on to his humanity, and he's kind of afraid he won't be able to. John Corbin's Metallo is kind of struggling with the same thing, albeit in a very darker way. A cyborg versus cyborg face-off could be interesting. I think it's really important going forward that the antagonists of the DCEU have a really meaningful connection to the heroes. Take Ares for example. He was far from my favorite part of Wonder Woman's solo movie, but he still created an interesting conflict for her. Yeah, sure, he had the standard villain goals, but he also had something deeper. A real belief that humanity is inherently corruptible and ultimately evil. Wonder Woman's final fight with him has her pushing back against this idea, and Steve Trevor's sacrifice definitively proved to her that this wasn't true. Now granted, this wasn't the most complex arc in the world, you could probably accuse it of being corny if you really wanted, but it provided something Justice League was missing, an ideological conflict. Yes, Wonder Woman and Ares were beating the crap out of each other in the usual third act superhero movie fashion, but there was something deeper at stake. Justice League just didn't have this. It has a guy that wanted to get some boxes to terraform the Earth. The Justice League didn't want him to have those boxes. They fight. Not much more. With more grounded villains, Justice League 2 could take a stab at having more interpersonal conflict. And that, along with seeing the Justice League themselves play off each other in interesting ways, is what I'm really hoping to see in a sequel.
In your satin tights, fighting for your rights, and the old red, white, and blue.
Now, by the time that Justice League 2 gets made, my hope is that a few more good to great solo movies have been released, and audiences will know a lot more about Aquaman, The Flash, and Cyborg. One of the biggest things holding the first movie down was that it had to serve way too many masters, basically introducing a bunch of new characters whose struggle aren't really central to the actual plot of the movie. Like Barry's dad being in jail, Aquaman's strained relationship with his family, etc. It didn't have time to do any of that stuff justice. Okay, I swear that wasn't intentional. Hopefully the next movie won't have to deal with any of that. It can jump straight into the Justice League being a team and everyone being on the same page. It would be tough for any movie, especially one literally forced to be under 2 hours by the studio, to have enough time to tell a great story and to serve as setup for future standalone movies. Asking Justice League to do that was really just asking too much, but hopefully that won't be a problem in the future. Then of course there's the talent behind the camera. This part might be a little controversial, because there's nothing that gets comic book movie fans riled up faster than talking about Zack Snyder. Love him or hate him, there's no denying that he's a really polarizing filmmaker. But speaking for myself, I'd really like to see someone else get a shot at directing. Since Patty Jenkins made the best received film in the DCEU, it only makes sense to offer it to her first. And I think there's a lot of signs that she would do really well. The team dynamic in Wonder Woman was one of the most enjoyable aspects of the film, and her early film, Monster, tells me that she can do a lot of great stuff in different tones as well. I mean, she's directed the very dour and serious drama The Killing, and great comedy in Arrested Development. So I think she'd be able to handle a Justice League movie no matter what tone the script called for. That's just the most obvious choice. Another would be James Wan, who's currently directing Aquaman. Of course, there's plenty of other choices as well. Anyway, as you can probably tell from my last few videos, I was pretty let down by Justice League. But I think a sequel with a good script and a great director is all it would take to turn the franchise around. But I want to hear what you guys think. What comic book story would you guys like to see adapted, and what director do you think would be best to tackle it? I can't wait to hear your ideas.
Here's a special tip for the fellas and girls who have not already joined Captain Midnight's new 1940 Flight Patrol. You'd better hurry up and join at once, because there's a big adventure ahead. The thing to do now is to get started, because we're going to have not only barrels of fun, but loads of free gifts and prizes.